I'm back. So good morning. Happy Sunday morning. I am so excited to be here with everybody this morning here on IGTV and welcome. There's Jaime. Great. I'm going to wave to Jaime. I'm really excited to bring on my guest this morning, Jaime Sharp. And let me add her. Okay, there she is. Good. All right, this time. See if she'll come on again.
There we
Yay!
go. Yay.
Oh, good. So much better. So much better. So I'm going to do my little good morning welcome. Since I did it before, but then I deleted that video. But I'm thrilled that everybody's here this Sunday morning on IGTV with us with Banter with Beth. It's this platform that we've decided to release because we want to support the film that we've been working on for the last 3 years, Would You Hide Me?, which is about 7 Jewish siblings who were hidden for 2 years outside of Berlin during World War II. And it's an extraordinary film filled with bravery and courage and hope. And we are banging the drum, especially in December right now for Giving Tuesday. End of your donations, you guys, please go to bethlane.com and you can find these big fat donate buttons. But what I love about Banter with Beth is, other than this little thing right at the beginning, I get to put all the focus of what I'm doing onto other people and not talk about my film. And so I'm thrilled that Jaime Sharp has joined us this morning. Welcome, Jaime.
Thank you.
Yeah, how are you this Sunday morning?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really, really good. So I'm really excited to tell people how we know each other. I want to start there. And do you... gosh, we'll go all the way back. Your aunt, Margie, and I were the best and closest of friends, I think, since we were maybe 3 years old.
Mm.
And we used to live in downtown Chicago on the same block on Roscoe. And did you ever see that apartment on Roscoe and Lakeshore Drive?
I did. Yeah.
Did?
Yes.
What an apartment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a place to just have imagination and make believe and the kinds of things that we would do as little kids in that apartment. It was just extraordinary. And we would meet in the middle. We lived in a much smaller apartment building half a block away. And Margie and I would meet in the middle and make mud pies together and try and sell mud pies to people, to someone who would actually think it was pie. And we'd play Barbies and, stuff like that. And then I moved out to the suburbs, but of course, the Norton family stayed right on the corner of Roscoe and Lakeshore Drive forever and a day. And it was wonderful in that because at Hebrew school, Margie and I still got to see each other every Sunday at Hebrew school. And then, of course, our moms were really nice and would drive us for the occasional sleepover weekend thing. And, that had nothing to do with Hebrew school and stuff like that. But we literally, I think that... we probably stayed in Hebrew school into high school just so that we could see each other once a week.
Yeah.
Hebrew school was the extra bonus, but really it was so that it was our chance to just see each other once a week. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So your mom and your uncle, I've known them since they're little kids.
Yeah.
And of course, your Uncle Scott was like the little runt of the litter, and we could abuse him and, all that kind of stuff as older sisters are wont to do. But your mom was always the cool one. She was so much older and she was so hip and so into everything very cool. And we always wanted to know what was happening and what was going on. Yeah. So that's such a fun connection for me and with you. And, meeting you for the first time was, it wasn't on a happy day. It wasn't a happy experience. But we both had the privilege of singing together at your Aunt Margie's memorial service. And I remember meeting you, being just extraordinarily impressed with your bravery and courage. It's hard enough to sing at a memorial, let alone for someone that you love.
A family member, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And then to have the even more fun connection of you going to University of Michigan, which is my alma mater, and then performing on some of the same stages that I got to perform on.
Yes, yeah. It's so crazy.
So tell me about your Michigan experience, and I'm really, really interested. I mean, I'm also just fascinated. Someone your age, someone your background, who was like, you're a sports family. The Norton family is known in Chicago.
Yeah.
Bulls, White Sox, Blackhawks. You are sports all the way, and you are an opera singer. How did that happen? How did you become interested and passionate about opera?
Yeah, so when I was really, really young, my mom enrolled me in theater camp, and I absolutely fell in love with acting, and got to do some really fun stuff. And then when I was in middle school, we had the option to choose choir, band, or they called it wheel, which was like a rotation of art and PE and like computer and a bunch of random electives. And the choir put on the annual musical. And so I was like, okay, if I take choir, you know, I'll be able to get on stage and kind of get my acting fix. But at the time, I wasn't really interested, definitely not in classical music, but I wasn't really interested in singing that much. And I really owe it to my teacher, Miss Johnson, for just seeing something in me that I didn't really know that I had, and encouraging me to then do, we have all-state choir, so everyone from around the state can audition to be in this like select choir that puts on performances in the spring. So I got to meet kids from all over the state. That was my first introduction to classical music. She really encouraged me to take it seriously and find a voice teacher. And so I started taking private voice lessons in high school. And then I was trying to.
And where was this? Where did you grow up? You didn't grow up in Chicago, did you?
No, I grew up outside of Orlando, Florida.
Right. Okay.
Yep. So it was there, and then I was in Texas for a few years, like beginning of high school, and then we came back to Florida. And again in Florida, in the county that I was in, it was just like, it was so amazing for the arts and all the opportunities that I got. You know, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a theater troupe that traveled and went around the country to perform, which I know a lot of people, you know, don't get, especially from a public school. And yeah, and I had kind of danced around, you know, different things I wanted to do in college, and didn't think that performance was something that I wanted to do. But then it felt like, I don't know, like I wouldn't be complete if I wasn't performing. And yeah, and that's how I ended up at Michigan. You know, looking at schools I didn't want to go the conservatory route. I wanted to go somewhere where I could get the full college experience with the football games and all the clubs and meeting people who had very different interests than I did. I didn't want to go, you know, full ham on the music things. I wasn't sure if that was what I wanted. And yeah, and I fell in love with it, and I'm still in love with it. And now I am a full-time graduate student at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. And it's been an interesting hybrid semester, but it's still, I'm so privileged to be able to continue learning and growing as an artist during this time.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. So before we go on to Cincinnati, I want to talk about Michigan for just a few minutes, because we also have a fun connection. I don't know if you remember this, but one of the first roles that I played at Michigan, and I think the first role that you were cast in at Michigan decades later, was Mrs. Partlet. Did you play Mrs. Partlet?
I did, yes, my freshman year, yeah.
Right?
It was so crazy, yeah.
And that was, I'm trying to remember the name of that piece.
The Sorcerer.
The Sorcerer,
yeah.
Right. So we both got to, Constance, me daughter.
Yes.
Such a fun role to play. And when your grandma called me and told me that you were playing that, I'm like, oh my God, it's Bichert, it's meant to be, it's in the script and the stars, you know, all that kind of thing. Now, when I played it, it was at the Mendelssohn Theater. Where did you do it?
That's where I was as well.
What a jewel box of a theater, right?
Yes, yeah, I love it so much.
And when I played that role, maybe you got luckier than I did. After belting that fun thing out, I was invited to then sing the national anthem for the basketball team. And there were some family circumstances that happened that I was unable to do it. And then the season ended. But we had some family medical emergencies at home and so forth. And And I always was like, oh my gosh. Now, have you been able to sing the national anthem in different places?
I have not, actually.
What?
I know my grandma really wants me to at a game, so I'm sure it will happen sometime.
Yes.
But yeah,
absolutely. I think that has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You of all people, for sure, definitely. So then the other really fun connection we have about Michigan, of course, is Ken Fisher. Ken Fisher from UMS.
Yes.
And so tell me, how did you get involved with UMS, and what were the things that you were doing for UMS? He thinks the world of you, by the way.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah, so my freshman year, like towards the end of first semester, I saw a sign in the music school lounge for the UMS student committee. And I didn't really, because being new to campus, I wasn't really sure what UMS was. And I thought the club was more about, a group of students who like to go see performances. And I was like, I really like to see performances, so maybe I'll meet people, and we can go to stuff together. And then I kind of learned all of the awesome administrative and like marketing stuff that the committee gets to work on.
Yeah.
And so then I was on the board of the committee for a couple of years. And then my last year I was co-president, and I also interned in the marketing department. And it was the most fun I've ever had. And it really got me on a kick for administration.
Sure. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Which then I suppose explains how you, at such a young age, have now become the CEO of a couple of different companies that one is called Next Gen, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Opera Next Gen. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about Opera Next Gen and what you're doing for it and what the mission of Opera Next Gen is.
For sure, yeah. So it developed over the summer. I saw a post from our founder in a Facebook group with a bunch of singers, just that he had this idea, and he had basically a name and a mission. And the idea behind it is that a lot of us face discrimination within this industry, whether that be classism, racism, sexism, et cetera, the list goes on and on. And especially with some of the events that happened this summer, what can we do as artists to try to make change rather than waiting for the people on the other side of the table to do so? Because we've been waiting and we continue to wait and we don't see, anything happening. So that was kind of, that's the first part of the mission. And then the second part was finding virtual community, online community when we all feel, really alone. I'm in a privileged position that I'm in graduate school. Not everyone is in the same place. A lot of people move back home. A lot of people are feeling hopeless and unsure about what to do in terms of performance, because there's not opportunities everywhere. And especially right now, they're really limited. So then we thought, that ties in with, our idea of equity and equality, is that being a virtual company, we can reach anyone anywhere. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be in a certain program. You don't have to live in New York or Chicago or one of these more populated areas with a lot of art. You can be in, your apartment in a random place, and still be able to make music and connect with other artists, and also connect with audiences. And then, from that side as well, audience members who may not be, right now, no one's really seeing live performance, but even in the future, if you're not in a financial situation to go to a lot of the arts and theaters, because of course it's very expensive, or you don't live in an area that has a lot of performances, you can still get world-class talent from your couch. And that's, I think, a really interesting direction that opera has kind of been behind in progressing and trying to reach this newer generation. And so instead of waiting for the people that are running it now to make those changes, how can we, the up and comers, just say, well, we know exactly what we want, I look at we have the most amazing team of just such varied backgrounds. We have a couple, professors at the college level. We have some students like myself and everything in between. And so it's great to have these conversations of what were your experiences like? How can we make this better for you? How can we, maintain this equitability as we move through? And a big thing in that is for like our auditions, no fees. That's a really big thing in this industry, is that you have to pay to audition, no fees, no age limit. You know, some people get a later start than others. I'm very young. You know, I was in a fortunate place in high school where I learned that I love music, but some people get into things later on, and that's totally okay. No age limit. We also don't ever want, you know, limitations as far as technology to be involved in our casting. So we're providing all of our cast with the technical equipment that they need, because right now it feels like with all the virtual auditions, if you don't have money to buy certain microphones, to buy certain, you know, headphones or camera, that you can't be a part of this. And so we don't want anyone to feel that way either. And
that's amazing. How are you supplementing people? How are you providing that for basically anyone to be able to have the equipment?
So we had a benefit gala recently. We're doing a pay it forward right now. And we actually got a sponsor. I don't want to say the sponsor because we're announcing it next week. Okay. But we've been very fortunate just from the support of the community through donations. And then we're also looking into some grants that we can build a tech package that has all of, you know, your audio interface, your headphones, green screen, lights, like a camera, a microphone. I think I'm covering everything, an Ethernet cable, and whatever a singer needs. If they have a mic, but they don't, you know, have lighting, then we can send it to them for the time being for the production, and then they can send it back. Right. So that we build these packs on hand, so that as we expand and we do more performances in the future with larger casts, because this opera, there's only 6 people in it, and we started small for that reason. Right. But then if we later on do a piece with 12 people, we'll already have these awesome tech packs ready to go. We send them out to the singers, and they have all that they need.
I love it. That's fabulous. It's incredible to me. You know, opera, I think, was really in the foreground of actually doing simulcasts and bringing audiences that couldn't get to the opera, bringing opera to them by doing simulcasts in movie theaters. I mean, this is several years ago now that they really began this incredible push when no one else was doing this at all. And, you know, we used to have simulcast or live theater performances in the 50s, which is before I was born. And I think it was something Playhouse, something, I can't remember. Maybe it was into the 60s, maybe even into the 70s, but it really went away. And come back. And then it is great to see that opera is, and perhaps it's because it's oftentimes thought of as a niche audience, that they felt like we have to do something to keep it alive. For sure. We have to stay progressive. And that's so wonderful and beautiful. I am flabbergasted that singers would ever have to pay to audition. That blows my mind. Particularly because in my industry, with the unions that I belong to, it is illegal. It is truly illegal, even so much for a casting director to charge a fee to come to a casting director workshop that's under the premise of possible work. And there was a huge, big legal fiasco a couple of years ago in Los Angeles and in New York in particular about this whole pay to play kind of scenario. So I'm thrilled to hear that you guys are like getting rid of that, right?
I think we may be one of the only industries that does that. I mean, and we're talking, you know, for someone my age, when you're looking at these young artist programs, doing anywhere from 10 to 20 auditions per season, and anywhere between $20 to like $80 per audition, on top of the fact that a lot of people have to travel as well. So a lot of things come into play. It's very, very expensive.
That's brutal. You need a sponsor. You need like Wheaties behind you to be able to be an opera singer and so forth. So Opera Next Gen is what you're the co-founder
I'm actually not the
CEO of, but you're the co-founder of, what is it? Hear Us,
Hear Them Ensemble.
Tell us about that one.
Okay, so this was developed in October through CCM. So I am in a musicology, well, I guess it ended this week, but I was in a musicology class this semester called Protested Music. So we talk a lot about more controversial music throughout the years. And we
like
had
like what kind of controversy?
Well, so this one was probably arguably the most controversial composer in the standard canon is Wagner. And it, our professor really wants to just be there to kind of facilitate a discussion between students, which I really enjoy. So then you not debate necessarily, but you're just speaking openly about, and to hear what people think. And there's always this big argument, like, do we produce works by Wagner because his music was so great and then ignore how terrible of a person he was, how anti-Semitic he was, and homophobic and misogynistic and racist, et cetera, et cetera. Or do we stop performing his music, and then do we still talk about him because of the contributions that he made to opera? And it was kind of a back and forth whole thing. And it affects me personally because of my voice type. I get deemed as a Wagnerian voice. And that's always an interesting thing, as someone who's Jewish, to be told that I have to label myself with someone, who's so anti-Semitic before my own name. And before I've even gotten to that point in my career, being told that this is what I'll perform and this is how I will make my money, has been an interesting thing that I've had to grapple with, especially as I get closer to that point. But I just brought up in our discussion that, we spend so much time debating, like, do we perform Wagner or not, but why don't we spend this energy on talking about composers we aren't performing? The women we aren't talking about, the people of color we aren't talking about, the genderqueer people we aren't talking about. We put so much energy into these older composers, and talking about when things come up that are controversial and pretending we don't hear about them, and we keep performing the standard works. But why don't we start introducing, like, all of these pieces that we don't ever talk about?
Yeah.
And so I was one of like 3 students of color in that class. And one of my colleagues, Harry Cecil, reached out to me, just really inspired by kind of like the ideas that I had, and the work that I've done in the past, specifically with like African-American and Black composers. And he's a choral conducting student, and asked if I would be interested in forming a choral ensemble in the area dedicated to performing only works by marginalized composers. And while I, maybe didn't necessarily have time for another project, that kind of thing, it's very hard for me to say no to stuff like that. And I think that that's really what CCM could use and this area could use, is something that is entirely Black led. So we know that the intentions are there. We're not doing this as a form of tokenism or for ourselves. We're doing it to enlighten not just audiences and community members, but also the singers who join, because we don't perform, for the whole entire year. The opera, voice, and choral departments have only programmed works by white men, and that's not okay. We can't keep, going on and acting like, oh, well, we'll do better next time, especially when they're making statements like Black Lives Matter and telling, their students Black Lives Matter. But then I sit here as a marginalized student and do not feel like my voice is being heard because I don't see the action to follow the words that I'm being told. And so, again, it's similar to with Opera Next Gen. If we're not getting what we need from the people on top, then we can just do it ourselves. And so we hope, we start rehearsals in January, and that whole thing, we're kind of doing a big launch planned for the spring. But in the future, we hope to tour. We hope to get in a bunch of schools and talk to students about what they can do, and just getting involved in music, because that's another thing, especially with arts programs being cut. A lot of students just don't have access to it.
Absolutely. And I feel like in so many ways, particularly in music, not as much in theater, but particularly in music, the education that students get when it comes to someone that's not white stops at minstrel singing. And it doesn't carry on, And of course, there are so many composers and singers and lyricists that have something to say specifically to your community of people that feel marginalized. And yes, there are new people. So tell us some of the people that you're really listening to, that you're admiring, that you hope to perform their works Who's doing what you want to be doing? You know, is it?
Yeah.
You know,
I think my favorite right now is H. Leslie Adams. He is, his music is just, it's so phenomenal. I sing one of his arias from his opera Blake. But there's a perfect example is every time I sing that piece, I used it for auditions this season. Everyone's been like, where is this aria from? Like, I've never heard this. Like, this is amazing. And you look and it's like, it's not a lack of talent. It's just a matter that his works never got produced because he's a Black man. Mm-hmm. And you look at like the Met finally next season will perform their first work by a Black composer. But it's taken this long.
Crazy. That's crazy, Jaime.
It's taken this long, yeah.
I mean, that's just, I mean, bravo and brava. And I think it's awesome that you're doing what you're doing. Do you think that your work at Michigan, being involved in the anti-racist task force, when did you become woke? When was your moment of saying, wait a minute, I am not being represented here? When did that really happen?
I mean, that's been something like kind of my whole life growing up in a predominantly white area. That I didn't even realize what I wasn't getting until I reached college and I met, I mean, what are the odds that within my voice program, my two best friends end up being mixed women who are in, you know, the voice program, like people just like me. I never thought I would go to college and my two best friends would be people just like me. Like, what are the odds, you know? And just having like these kind of conversations and just being surrounded by so many wonderful people of color who I never met and I never got to have these conversations with. Mm-hmm. And I started realizing how much I was naive to, which that happens. And it's nothing against anyone like in my area or anyone in the family. It's just you grow older and you start to form more opinions for yourself. And I was really inspired. We have a lot of really awesome Black faculty at the University of Michigan who do a lot of this work, like Dr. Louise Toppin. I was honored to study with Professor George Shirley for a time, and he was the first Black tenor to sing at the Metropolitan Opera, and he's in the African American Museum at DC, and it's crazy to think about how that wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. You know, I was able to work with this man, and how scary it is, the similarities in some of the discussions that we've had with the discrimination going on. That we're talking, you know, 70 years ago to today, he thought we would be in a very different place. And so I think, you know, I fight for people like him because he thought we would be further along and he fought for me. Mm-hmm. And I also, you know, I teach like middle school and high school kids, and that's who I'm thinking about when I do this work. I want them to have a better experience than I did. We lost a very talented Black student in my class during the time at the University of Michigan because he was just so shut out by the environment. It's a very elitist, and it's not just Michigan, it's just opera in general is very elitist, and a lot of people feel like they don't belong. And, you know, I didn't go to Interlochen or any fancy things during high school. I didn't do a recital during high school. I'd never even performed in an opera. A lot of people had done light opera or, you know, like youth opera programs. And so it feels like a lot when you enter college and being surrounded by those people. And I mean, it just breaks my heart that someone so talented, and he's not the only one, but that's, you know, a prime example that I watched someone so talented feel so unwelcome that they left. You know, and that they weren't able to, I mean, they loved music and they were told they were limited because of the way they looked in the background that they came from, that they ended up being shut out. And those are the kind of things, I never want that to happen to one of my students, you know?
Right. Well, there's no question about it. You are a force to be reckoned with. You are making a stand, having your voice heard with both of these opera companies, with the work that you're doing in graduate school, and even just speaking today, you know, publicly about what's on your mind and how people can support and become engaged. Which company or both right now are you raising money for?
So for the ensemble, we're waiting a little bit.
Okay.
For Opera Next Gen, we are doing a Pay It Forward campaign right now.
Okay, so how can people give you money? Where do they go?
Yes, so they go to www.operanextgen.com. Any donations between now and January 1st, a percentage of those proceeds will go back into our ticket sales so that we're able to provide free tickets for those who can't afford to pay to come and see the productions.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so great. Well, I can't believe this half an hour was like flown by, but I was thinking that maybe to kind of close it out, would you be brave enough to sing with me right now what we sang for Margie?
So I would, but I got surgery a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you
and I'm
can't
actually,
do it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm off for the whole month of December.
No, you can't do it. Okay, so then let me just tell a little anecdote, a little story about what we sang.
Okay.
So you and I sang Over the Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, your uncle, when he asked me to speak at Margie's memorial, I said, well, of course. And then he came back to me like a few minutes later, well, will you sing? I'm like, what? What, are you kidding? And I said, okay, yes, of course I'll sing. And then I said, what would you like me to sing? And then he said, of course, Over the Rainbow. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. That's the hardest song on the planet besides the national anthem. I'm not singing Over the Rainbow. So, of course, we sang Over the Rainbow because we had to. And what I have learned so much about Over the Rainbow is that it was a song that was written before, gosh, what's the movie? What am I, how can I?
Oh, Wizard of Oz?
Thank you, Wizard of Oz. And, but it was really written about people in concentration camps.
Mm-hmm.
Who couldn't get out and wanted to see the other side. They were imagining the other side. And of course, when we think about that and that circumstance and that time, that vile, horrific time in history, and you hear this incredible song that has stood the test of time, right? And you bridge the two together, it really, to me, just speaks so much towards the arts and how and why the arts matter and are important for every human being who can breathe. You know, it's something that is terribly important for all young people to be introduced to, and for us to continue to support and remind ourselves, yes, this is important. This is an opportunity for us to feel and have connection with other human beings.
Yeah.
It's a chance for us to experience empathy and compassion, whether we're aware of it or not. Music, you know, the way that music is arranged just makes it happen for you.
For sure. Yeah.
It speaks to different parts of our soul. And most of the time people aren't even aware of it, and that's just fine, right? That's just fine. So if there's, you know, anything that I'm just so proud that you're doing what you're doing, and carry on. And if there's anything that I can do to support what you're doing, let me know. Let us know your big announcement next week so I can announce it for everybody, because that's great. We just scored a partnership.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, with Holocaust Museum Los Angeles. I'm very, very excited about that. I guess I use the word score because you're from a sports family. But anyway, it's wonderful having you on, and thank you for joining me this morning. And please give my love to your entire family.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Best of luck to you. Okay, bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.